Welcome to the Lalulah podcast, real-life conversations about modern sexuality and how to live a happy, healthy, turned-on life. I'm your host, Laura Allen, a holistic health coach and founder of Lalulah, an online platform offering natural erotica toys as well as the educational tools you need to expand your pleasure in and outside the bedroom. Welcome back to another episode of the Lalulah podcast. Today I'm interviewing Sara Widdowson from Your Monthly, and she is a magical dietitian who specializes in women's health and fertility. So in this episode, we are deep diving into all things hormonal health. We talk about diet trend, diet fads, and if they are truly beneficial to a young woman's body and her cycle. We talk about lifestyle and how that impacts our cycle. We talk about why fertility is important even when we're not trying to have a baby, and so much more. Sara has a deep understanding of this topic, and I'm so excited to share this episode because it's just full of golden nuggets on how to not only get back in touch and love your monthly cycle again, but actually some practical tips and tools that we can do today to, create happy, healthy, turned on periods. Enjoy the show. Welcome, Sara. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being on the Lalulah podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to finally be doing this.
Yeah, I know. We've been trying to tee this up for a while and we've had all sorts of obstacles come in between us, and now we're finally here. So I'm really excited to talk about hormonal health, period positivity, fertility, and all of that sort of juicy stuff. And yeah, I feel like you're the perfect person to do this with. So,
I love the enthusiasm for periods. It's good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Love periods, but we're going to talk about that more. So my first question is, what color are you today and why?
What color am I? Oh, it's an interesting question. The first color that comes to my head without overthinking the question is Your Monthly, beautiful mint green, because I've been working with women all morning and flying the Your Monthly flag, and now we get to talk more about periods. So I'm a mint green.
Beautiful. I love it. It's such a beautiful pastel color. It's a strong brand color. You did good.
It is.
Okay, so let's just get straight into this. The first question that I've got is, why is hormonal health so important?
Oh my gosh, how long do we have? I guess the first thing I want to talk about is, I don't know about you, but growing up as a female, I feel like there's often a really negative connotation with being hormonal, and it's almost said in a way that's really negative about women, or you're so hormonal, or you're being really hormonal, or if a woman, expresses herself in a certain way, it must be that time of the month. But my mission working with women is to educate them that your sex hormones have such a big responsibility and a major role in everything in your life and your well-being, from your sex drive to your appetite, bone health, preventing certain cancers like breast cancer, preventing heart disease. Some of them make you hungrier, they increase your metabolic rate. So I think being hormonal is actually pretty bloody cool, to be honest, and I think it's important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's at the essence of who we are as women. We're cyclic beings, and, we don't have to suppress that. I think what's just gotten lost is the wisdom in how to work with our cycles instead of against our cycles, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to diving into that more. Next question is, why is fertility important, even when we don't want to have kids?
Yeah, that's probably Your Monthly's strongest message, is that fertility is about so much more than making babies, and that we shouldn't be scared of that word. Being fertile is actually a really good thing. Even if you don't want to be pregnant, being fertile is definitely positive. And the reason being fertile is positive is you need female sex hormones on board at the right levels at the right time to be fertile. So, for example, if you don't have enough estrogen swimming around in the first half of your cycle, then you're not going to ovulate. ovulate. You can't conceive without that egg. But also, if you've got estrogen swimming around the first half of your cycle, then you'll experience things like increased libido. Normally, we're more confident the first half of our cycle. So often women might talk about being a little clearer with making decisions, or they might feel sexier the first half of their cycle. I talk about estrogen as the girl that wants you to get pregnant. So she's pretty cool to have around. And then in the second half of your cycle, you get all the benefits of progesterone as well. So things like sleep. Progesterone is also really important for being calming and helping improving your mood too. So it's so much more than making babies.
Absolutely. I believe that fertility is the epitome of health. I love being a fertile woman, and I mean, I'm not planning to have a baby anytime soon at all. And I just feel like ovulating every month is such a gift, like such a gift. How good, how amazing is that? Yeah, it's just, it's the best feeling. Like I know when I'm ovulating because I walk out into the world and I am just magnetizing, and my experience with every person who I interact with, whether that be a human being, an animal, or even nature, is just beautiful. It's like everything just has this glitter on top of it. It's incredible.
That's it, isn't it? You see the world, everything's a little bit brighter, I think, for the first half of the cycle, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then having like a proper period as well is also absolutely delicious. I love getting my period. It's this time for me to shed and release and be with myself. And I'm actually really creative, and I love being so insular and sensitive and delicate to all of my emotions, because it just gives me the space and the time and the capacity that I need to process what I need to, let go of what I need to physically, energetically, emotionally. Yeah. And then, step into my next cycle, my next phase, ready.
Absolutely. And I think when you understand your cycle and what it's like and the experience of it in your own body, you can kind of make different life decisions or make different, structures around your day or in your week based on what that part of your cycle is. Championing your cycles is such a really big thing. The other thing about fertility that I like talking about is being informed about your fertility. And there's lots of quite scary research around, women's understanding of how long they've got in order to conceive without assisted fertility support. And so, for example, your fertility declines quite drastically after the age of 35, and it starts to decline after the age of 30, and that's because age is the biggest factor. But most women, if you asked younger girls, around the age of 20, 25, they think that they've got much longer in order to have a family. So it's not just about being aware of fertility and why it's important for reasons other than making babies, but it's also genuinely just being interested in your fertility and thinking forward to you in 5 or 10 years' time and going, if I want to be a mum and if that's part of my future, how do I make that work for me? What is my fertility like? And how do I take control of my fertility now so when I'm ready, I can do it?
Absolutely. And baby prepping can be, a year, 2 year long process. And
definitely.
a lot of people think that they can just stop taking the pill. They hope that they can stop taking the pill and then they'll be able to fall pregnant. And of course, maybe some women do, but there's a lot of women out there who don't. And that's because for multiple reasons, taking artificial hormones isn't great, but then our lifestyle and the food that we eat and how we treat ourselves all contributes to our fertility. So it's really important that we are educated properly so that when this time does come, we know what to expect and how to prepare the best that we can for it.
Absolutely. A lot of the clients that I work with, they've been on hormonal contraception since they were 15, 16 years old, and then they get to 28, 29, 30, and they've got no idea what their period's actually like because they've been having it masked by this medication. All the problems they were having with their period 10 years ago, they were addressed. I'm doing like the inverted finger thing because it wasn't addressed by being given the pill. And so now they've got to do that groundwork, almost like catching up, rather than understanding what's happening, doing strategies or implementing nutrition and lifestyle strategies as part of the treatment for their period problems. So they've got that fertility there when they want it.
Yeah, absolutely. The magic pill being a solution when actually it ain't. No.
It ain't. That's it.
It ain't. So what are some of the biggest issues that your clients are experiencing. So yeah, like what are the common things that people come to you with?
Yeah. Why do people come to your monthly? I've got probably 3 main streams, if you like, of clients. I don't like putting people into boxes, but there's probably 3 main reasons why people come to me. Number 1 is a complete loss of period. So either post coming off hormonal medication and they're trying to get that period back and it's been, 6, 12, 18 months and it's not happening for them. Or otherwise they might be experiencing that due to things like the rise of really intense exercise programs. I'm not going to name them, but really intense working out that doesn't suit their body. Perhaps they're not feeding their body enough to sustain a period. And we can talk a little bit about that further on today if you like. Mm-hmm. Or perhaps they've cut out significant food groups, which we know are really important for period health too, in particular carbohydrates, and we can talk about that more. So they're my first group. What tends to come out of those consultations is often there's a fear of increasing their food intake. And then out of those conversations, we kind of go down rabbit holes like disordered eating and body image issues. And it's not saying that everybody who doesn't have a period has problems with their relationship with food, but it's just being able to ask those questions around, am I eating enough? And if I'm not, then why not? And what could I be doing about it? So that's group 1. Group 2 is women with polycystic ovarian syndrome or PCOS. And a lot of them come to me either to seek regular periods again, and they're wanting to move away from either intense medical regimes around that, or they're feeling really conflicted by all the information out there and they don't know how to make sense of it. So they work with me on that. And my other major client group is women with endometriosis as well. And we'll either look at managing the gut issues that can come with that condition, or again, it's supporting them through fertility treatment. So that's my 3 main group of ladies that come to see me, but there's lots of other reasons too.
Yeah, interesting. So let's dive straight into the diet piece, because there's all sorts of fad, trendy diets out there at the moment that I have a huge question mark around when it comes to, is that optimal for young women's bodies and our cycles?
I think the key word there is young women. So women are pretty unique in that I think we're way more interesting than men. Sorry, guys. But our needs across a lifetime are completely different versus men. Once they reach, adulthood, they kind of stagnate and they stay the same. Younger women, we need those female sex hormones for things like bone mineral density. We need it for mood as well, lots of different reasons. And if you are cutting out significant food groups, so for example, if we talk about ketogenic diets or low carb diets, your body perceives that as starvation because carbohydrates break down into glucose, and glucose is our body's most preferred fuel source. It's just really easy for our body to use. It's really accessible for our body to use, and it's one of the only fuel sources that can cross the blood-brain barrier. So if you cut out carbohydrate foods or you significantly reduce your intake of them, that tells your brain, which is actually the part of your body that controls ovulation, that there's not enough food in the world. So it downregulates the precursor hormones to ovulation, which are luteinizing hormone or follicle stimulating hormone. If you've ever had blood work, it'll come up as LH or FSH. So your brain, your hypothalamus says, we're not going to ovulate this month because there's not enough food around here for mum and baby, and it downregulates that happening. So when women come to me and they don't have their period, I'm looking for carbohydrates in their diet, and if they've cut them out, I want to know why. And often that brings up questions, like I said before, around wanting to change their weight or manipulate their weight. Lower carbohydrate diets can be really useful for menopausal women who are struggling with weight gain over that time of their life, but that life stage is completely different to being a menstruating young female. Completely different. The other major diet kind of craze that I'm seeing that breaks my heart is intermittent fasting. It's got lots of press. Lots of people do it. They swear that they get these, really energy boosted days and they experience all this mental clarity. But again, I just ask you to be in tune with your body. And if you lose your period because you're not eating until after lunch or 2 p.m., is that really a health change? Yes, your weight's being manipulated, and if that's your desired outcome, then I guess you're kind of getting what you want from that. But if you're losing your period in the process, could you maybe invite yourself to think about, is that really healthy, and what is the longer consequence of that change?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we don't understand, especially as women, is that our ideal body weight and our healthy body weight is not necessarily fitness cover girl, skinny, six-pack of abs body.
100%. Yeah.
And I think if we actually did really start to tune into ourselves and ate when we really truly wanted to eat foods that are really right for our bodies, we would naturally, weight would fall off. Our bodies would naturally maintain a healthy body weight for us, for our unique body type. And it's different for every single woman, and it changes, like you say, throughout our lives. And, it's really fascinating. I also wonder about, with intermittent fasting and, eating, say, a low carb, raw food diet even, perhaps there's more space for those particular styles of eating when we're ovulating, for example, throughout our ovulation phase, as opposed to when we're menstruating. What are your thoughts on that?
Something that I see is women, will say to me, is it normal to feel hungrier at certain times of my cycle? And estrogen makes you hungrier, and you should eat more because your basal metabolic rate's actually higher at that time. I think, your point before around if we were listening to our bodies, what would our bodies say and how could we interpret that in terms of food choices and navigating that diet space? I'm not saying that intermittent fasting doesn't work for everybody, but if your period becomes, a loss of period as a consequence of that happening, then it's not for you. And could you find a way forward that respects your period health and can restore that? Diets are... They're built, the advertising around them and the discussion around them, it's built to make you want to try them. And the discussion around them, often from bigger companies, again, not going to name companies, but they play on women's vulnerabilities in particular, around body image and wanting to be accepted by society as well. So, I'm a big anti-diet dietitian. I actually hate the word diet is included in my professional title. I wish we could change that somehow. But yeah.
Absolutely. I never use the word diet with any of my clients. It's just food and nourishment, because the word diet insinuates that we need to restrict or change or, change the way we are now, because who we are right now isn't good enough, right? We need
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to become something else. So I like how you mentioned that.
I talk a lot with my clients about non-weight related victories. So being able to look at a diet change, for example, if we're talking about, it might be increasing carbohydrates. We're talking about your period being the victory there. That's got nothing to do with, I don't weigh my clients in clinic. I don't have scales in here. That's something that we can celebrate. That's got nothing to do with the scales. Or you might talk about energy levels, sleep quality, confidence, gut health, lots of different things. So trying to focus on bigger picture stuff than just that number.
I love that. It's so beautiful. So, okay, what about let me think about this question properly. So what is the best way let's talk specifically about younger women. So, 20 to 40 age, 20 to 35 age group. Mm-hmm. What is the ideal way for us to be nourishing our bodies?
Yeah, oh my God, what a big question. No pressure. It's actually really difficult to give nutrition advice. I feel like people get sick of hearing dietitians and nutritionists say that, but it's so individual. We were talking just before about body weights being completely individual. So it's hard to give large audience advice on this kind of platform. I think the biggest key messages that I give to women are, watching caffeine intake in particular. I spend so much of my time with women talking about their relationship with caffeine. And we kind of talk about it, how it's like the new smoking. It's really socially acceptable to go out and get a coffee and have 10 minutes break. No matter how busy you are at work or in your life, everyone makes 10 minutes for that coffee break, and then understanding, is it about the coffee or is it about the treating yourself or the time away from your desk? There's that have a cup of get shit done or whatever the saying is. Coffee's got this really hustler, grinding connotation with it. And so we talk about how you can feel productive and confident in your work day without a flat white in your hand. So coffee is definitely a big one. And the reason we talk about coffee is because of the stress hormone response that it induces, and how stress hormones and sex hormones, they can't hang out in the same space. in simple terms. So coffee is an absolute big one that I talk to women about. We talk about meal regularity. So I see lots of women who prioritize everybody else in their world and not them. So think of, the mum who makes their kids lunch boxes and make sure that they have breakfast before school because they love them, but they don't make any space in their day to finish their meals. So we talk about meal regularity being really important and trying to see food as an act of self-care, and you're actually worth feeding no matter what the body is you have right now.
So is that 3 meals a day or 4?
Completely different for people. Honestly, it is. I'm a bit of a rogue dietitian in that I don't force people to eat breakfast. If you've never eaten breakfast and you don't enjoy it, don't have it. But if you're making, high sugary food choices when you're ordering that morning coffee because you haven't spent the 10 minutes to fuel your body in the morning, could we look at maybe breakfast as an option for you? Some women feel really slumped in the afternoon in terms of energy levels, so we might talk about like a smaller lunch and more frequent snacking rather than having that really big carbohydrate load in the middle of the day, which makes them feel really tired. And the other really big message that I'm always trying to sing to all of my clients is you can never eat too many vegetables. So I grew up on a farm in the North Island, and it was really commonplace for me to see meat and 3 veggies on my plate every night for dinner. And I don't ever remember a vegetable, and that's no discredit to my parents, but I don't ever remember a vegetable making an appearance, at lunchtime or at breakfast, and certainly not in my snacks. So I'm trying to shift our perception of vegetables as just being a dinner time food, and we need it throughout the day. If you look at research around any long-term longevity or reducing your risk of any non-communicable diseases, we're talking about not just, 5+ a day like the Ministry of Health talks about. It's more like 8 serves a day or more.
I'm a big fan of a green smoothie in the morning, but a very vegetable-based green smoothie because gosh, I just feel like a green smoothie a day keeps the doctor away, and it keeps, helps to keep you regular, and you just get such a good dose of all of those green essential nutrients in the morning with lots of cruciferous veg. I'll put broccoli in there, I got all out on the green veggie smoothie in the morning. It's such a great way. And, I'll be honest, I still drink coffee, but I drink coffee in the morning after I've had my green smoothie. I've drunk, at least half a liter of water. I've had my lemon water. I've meditated. I've done all my things, and I've got something in my stomach. And the coffee that I have, it's more of a ritual, it's something that I do with my dog, Sid. I, make it with cacao and maca and coconut oil and coconut butter and, nutmeg and cinnamon and all of these different herbs and spices that I put in there. I've got these medicinal mushrooms that I put in there, like the cordyceps and the reishi and the chaga. And I put, perhaps, okay, it's instant coffee. Don't judge me.
Oh my.
I put maybe don't judge me. Okay. I love it. It makes me feel good. So, but I literally only put, a quarter of a teaspoon in, if even that. And, it's just enough to make me feel something, I guess. And it's just, I turn it and I treat it into such a beautiful ritual, and I make sure that I have all of these things in my stomach before consuming it so that I know that my body can handle it. And I think when it comes to coffee as well, just be super mindful. If you are someone who has 3 or 4 coffees in the morning and then is super jittery and anxious, then obviously that's not ideal for you. Yeah. It's putting your body into stress.
Yeah. I really like what you said about a ritual. And that's what I'm saying is, I try and tell women, I have one a day as well. I'm an espresso only girl. Sorry. But I know, what a snob. But have one a day and really enjoy it. Don't do the takeaway coffee thing. Sit down, listen to the beans being ground up, notice how the smell gets you excited for the day. And maybe it does make you more productive, or it gets your mind frame, different from being at home. If you're having that coffee at home, taking the time to look outside and notice something out the window while you're doing it, rather than that kind of noise drinking, that second or third cup that's actually just something to keep your mind busy, or something that you do out of habit and haze when you first get to work. That's a very different experience to actually sitting down and enjoying that one special coffee a day. And most of my clients absolutely know what I mean when I say that, and it's an easy change for them to make because they can tell the difference between the important one and the noise, the excess.
Yep. Amen to that. So we've talked a bit about carbohydrates and how important they are to have in our day-to-day life, but what kind of carbohydrates are we talking about here?
Yeah, that's a good point. They're not all the same, that's for sure. So carbohydrates, when I say that word, most people think bread and potato, but there's lots of foods that contain carbohydrates. So there is your breads and cereals, so things like rice, pasta, any baked goods as well. There's your starchy vegetables, so things like kumara, pumpkin, corn, potato, your lentils and pulses as well. There's actually a little bit of carbohydrate in milk and yogurt. Lactose is a natural sugar, just like fruit has fructose. And then there's all your fruits as well that contain carbohydrates. And then separate to those foods is all the sugary sweet stuff that most of us know contains sugar. And sugar is, of course, the most simple form of a carbohydrate food. When you're choosing a carbohydrate, most of the time, trying to choose something really high in fiber is important for making those energy levels long lasting and nourishing your body with other nutrients as well. So think things like quinoa. I'm a massive fan of things like brown rice and wild rice. If you're choosing to eat bread, make sure you can see lots of roughage in there. So the more bits you can see, the better. Getting carbohydrates from those starchy vegetable sources, so things like kumara and pumpkin. And I try and encourage simple tricks like leaving the skin on changes how that food's processed in your body as well, and provides additional food for your good gut bacteria too. With fruit, it's definitely including it, but being mindful of how much. So, you know, everyone goes on about how fruit's really high in sugar, and it is high in fructose, but you definitely should still eat a couple of serves a day. But it's just being mindful, you know, if you're starting the day with a morning smoothie and there's a whole fruit salad's worth of apples and oranges and bananas in there, would you really eat that amount of fruit if it was on a plate in front of you? Most people say probably not. So it's just being mindful of those. And then if you do want to have those sugary sweet things, it's making sure that it's something you really enjoy, having a small amount, being mindful about it and moving on, rather than using sugar as, I call it like an emotional blanket. Lots of us have a really interesting relationship with sugar, and it probably stems from, you know, that childhood rewarding behavior that often comes, you know, you do well at school and you get an ice cream on the car ride home, or you can pick what's for dessert tonight because you had a really hard time at school. And I think that stays with us as adults, and we're using sugar for reasons other than taste or hunger.
Absolutely. Oh my God. And sugar is just in everything. You know, I gave up alcohol. I gave up drinking alcohol for over a year. I've given up. I was celibate for a year. I've given up many, many things in my life, but sugar was the hardest of all of them. It is so addictive, and I'm happy to say now that I've been sugar-free for, I think nearly 2 years now, but every now and again, I will wake up and I'll be like, today I'm going to eat cake, you know, and I go out there and I do it, and I enjoy it. Every single bite, I just experience every single sensation of the cake or of whatever I'm eating. And I think that's really important. So if we do fall off the wagon, then to just enjoy that instead of beating ourselves up about it, which is going to put our bodies into stress response, which is going to make it even harder to digest. And not to mention this kind of like emotional battlefield that we need to then get ourselves out of as well. So if we are going to indulge in these things, just being mindful of how often we're doing it for starters, and like, are we just cheating ourselves here? And if we're not, then it's okay. It's okay to have these things every now and again.
The question I kind of give to my clients to take away and be curious about is, I can have it if I really want it, but do I really want it? And if the answer is yes, then like you say, have it, enjoy it, you know, make it an experience, share it with a loved one so it becomes a memory rather than that kind of secret or naughty eating that sometimes we can get into a habit of doing with those kind of foods. If the answer is no, I actually don't want it, then have the confidence to move on and go, well, what do I really want here? I use the other example of, you know, think about your most favorite cake flavor. So mine's definitely carrot cake because I'm here for the icing. You know, if you offered me right now a piece of carrot cake, I would say hell yes, and we would eat cake together. But if you offered me, I don't know, like a hummingbird cake or a banana cake, I can take it or leave it. If I'm in that dieting mentality, you think, oh my gosh, cake, I've got to eat it because I never get this. and then you eat it and it doesn't actually satisfy you and it's not what you really wanted. But if you're able to ask that intuitive question, I can have it if I want it, but do I really want it? You'll make food choices from a different space.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so much more empowering and so much more sustainable to make food decisions from a place of, do I want this? No, I don't because it doesn't make me feel good.
Yes.
As opposed to, no, I can't have it because I'll get fat. It's doing something from love for who we are and what we want to get out of our life, as opposed to coming from a place of fear and stopping ourselves
That's
because
exactly
we're scared
it.
of getting fat or something. And
That's
so
exactly
on.
it. I was listening to a podcast yesterday actually, and the lady that was being interviewed said it either better be, effing delicious or effing nutritious. And that's how she makes food decisions, and I loved that.
Word. Yes, I'm so into that. It's so interesting. It's like I said before that I stopped drinking for a while, and, I have started drinking again socially, and it's actually a part of my self-care routine, going out and having a few drinks and getting a bit silly. It's like it's part of play and connection and just being silly. And, before I used to do that every night of the week, and it was completely not healthy and self-destructive. But now, coming from a place, it's like, okay, I know that alcohol isn't necessarily good for my body and it's not great for my mental health either, but I do it every now and again, coming from a place of love, because I want to share and experience and connect with my friends on that level, as opposed to constantly being at cacao ceremonies and ecstatic dances and so on. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
like, it's about weighing it up and being really honest with yourself about where it's coming from and the desire to do these things. So,
absolutely.
I wanted to talk about our endocrine system essentially, and or our lifestyle, because I know that the food that we eat is really important, but how we eat it and how we go about our day-to-day lives, and I know you've already touched on exercise, is also really, really important for a healthy cycle. So did you want to dive into that a bit more for me?
Yeah, definitely. I think the easiest way to talk about that is going back to the discussion around stress hormones and what that does to your cycle. So we make two stress hormones in particular. So we make cortisol and we make adrenaline. Cortisol is naturally in our body. It rises at the top half of the day, so really early in the morning, and it does that to help you get out of bed in the morning. So it prompts your liver to dump some glucose or sugar into your bloodstream, which starts you waking up in the morning. And then if I stuck a hormone sensor on you, if we did blood tests throughout the day, you would see that cortisol level dipping down towards the evening, so then you can make melatonin and fall asleep at night. So cortisol we all have, in our system. Adrenaline is our survival response hormone. So we only make adrenaline, or we used to only make adrenaline when our life was in danger. So, for example, if you cross the road and a car came around the corner, your body would dump a whole lot of adrenaline into your system to keep you alive. So it does things like makes your eyes dilate, it dumps a whole lot of glucose, it delivers oxygen to your muscle cells because it thinks you need to start running. But unfortunately, the way that we're living means that we're making more of those stress hormones, both cortisol and adrenaline, throughout the day than we ever have before. And if we've got too many of those stress hormones going around our body that feed back to our hypothalamus. Remember, that's the part of your brain that controls ovulation. It tells your body essentially that it's too dangerous out there to make a baby, and it down-regulates ovulation. So women end up having either really long cycles, short cycles because of lack of ovulation, or they don't get a cycle at all. And I know, like in my own personal health experience, that if I've had really stressful life events, that my period's the first thing to hide away. And when I talk about stress with women, most people think, oh, you're talking about major life event. It's not that. It's the noise of every day, like you're saying, how we're living. It's stress from things like coffee we've spoken about. It's stress from, we're putting into our body from different food choices that we're making. It's stress in the sense that we're all on our bloody phones too much and we're not prioritizing sleep. It's stress in that we're overcommitted and that we've always blocked out, every hour of the day we're moving from task to task. So it's just inviting women to think about, where can you create space? I ask women to think about themselves like a cup, and that there is only so much of you in this cup. And I get them to write down in front of me in clinic, what are the things that are taking from your cup at at the moment. And they'll normally list things like, financial stress, or might be, conflict at work. It might be there's certain health issue, like, for example, fertility treatment's a really stressful thing to be going through. And then I get them to write down, what are you doing to put back into your cup? And normally, if there isn't that balance there between input and output in terms of self-care, that's where they can feel overwhelmed, anxious and stressed.
Beautiful. I love that exercise. That's a really great one for anyone to take home. So the next question I want to ask really quickly is, what about soy? Because there's all sorts of information out there about soy being bad for our cycles, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, soy, I would be a very wealthy woman if I had $1 for every time somebody asked me about soy. I guess what's interesting with nutrition is it's a pretty baby science in terms of, how long we've been looking into nutrition and associated health outcomes. Like, if you take the example of eggs in the 80s, everybody thought that eggs were going to give you heart disease, and the Heart Foundation put out, a big call saying that you should minimize or reduce your intake of eggs if you've got high cholesterol. But we now know that actually eggs are really wonderful for us, and you don't have to exclude them. If you look at soy, there hasn't been really large studies done on soy. Most of the studies done on soy are in animals, and that's where they've drawn evidence from. And the issue that most people perceive soy to, or the threat they think that it poses, is soy contains a certain chemical compound, if you like, called phytoestrogens. And estrogen, if you remember that word, we have that too in our body. So it's a plant-based steroid hormone, essentially, so it mimics estrogen in the body. And there's certain cancers, like certain uterine, breast cancers and thyroid cancers, that are thought to be estrogen sensitive. So the connection people made was, if I eat lots of soy, am I then exposing myself to increased risk of things like breast cancer? But if you look at observational evidence around populations, for example in Asia, that have been having soy-based products for many years, their rates of breast cancer are one of the lowest in the world. So I don't think soy is unsafe at all. If I was working with a woman that had a previous history of breast cancer, or she had a really strong family history of breast cancer, often they're not comfortable including soy, and it's absolutely fine. You can live a really healthy, long life without ever eating soy. But I don't think we need to be afraid of that food.
Beautiful. Okay, thanks for sharing. So what are some of the things that listeners can do today to improve their hormonal health? And I know that it's all about bioindividuality, but are there certain substances or, things that we can, not substances, what am I thinking?
Supplements? Are you trying to say supplements?
Yes, supplements. Gosh,
I do not condone
just a total
substances.
Blank. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Are there any, oh my God, I've almost said it again. Are there any supplements that we can take daily? To support our hormonal health?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess some of the key things around understanding or supporting hormone health, number one is start tracking your period, because if you know what's going on, then you can do something about it. There's lots of different apps you can download. I use My Cycles. Lots of my clients use one called Flow. So being aware of what's actually happening every month is my first tip. Number two is stress management, and within that, looking at things like we've talked about, coffee and sleep, and doing the cup exercise from today would be another really good trick. In terms of supplements, there are probably two main supplements that I recommend. Number one is magnesium. Magnesium's involved in building the foundation of the corpus luteum, which is the crater that's left behind after you ovulate. And that's what produces progesterone in the second half of your cycle. If you're somebody who's really stressed all the time, you're using more progesterone than normal, because it's your adrenal glands that also help to make progesterone. So it's just supporting your body that makes lots of those stress hormones all of the time. So magnesium's a good one for female reproductive health. The other one is zinc, is really helpful too. Zinc you have to be careful with. If you don't take it with food, it can make you feel quite nauseous, and we don't recommend that you take it for a long period of time because it competes with iron, calcium and copper for absorption. But for a short period of time, it's really useful, especially if you have PCOS, if you struggle with things like acne or hair growth in places that you don't want it to be, then zinc's really useful as well for period health. So that would be my top two supplement recommendations. But like you say, in terms of dose and things, it has to be individual.
Beautiful. I also want to add one thing into there. It's like meditation, just like learning ways to sort of calm our nervous system. I say this in, I think, every single podcast, but I just feel like meditation is the magic pill for everything.
Yeah.
And if we can start to build those tools to calm our nervous system, then that's going to go miles for our hormonal health.
Absolutely.
As well. So
I talk to my clients about diaphragmatic breathing, so that deep belly pranayama breathing that lots of us will be familiar with in yoga. It's the only way that you can switch your, like you say, meditation as well, switch your nervous system state from that fight or flight stress response into rest and digest. And I try and get them to do it as a ritual, as part of their day, so they're building up that muscle rather than trying to add it to the to-do list. So if your jug, your kettle is boiling in the morning, then trying to practice it then. If the car ride home is really stressful for you and traffic makes your blood boil, then including it then. Or it might be the shower at the end of the day. So that's another big one, is using that deep belly breathing to change your nervous system state.
Beautiful. I love it. I just did some right then as you were talking about
lovely.
It. So tell me about your monthly and tell me how people can find you.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I have a website, www.yourmonthlyclub.co.nz, and I'm trying to get better at updating blogs on there, but there's lots of wonderful resources, and there's a really easy contact form that you can fill out if you want to say hi. I love getting questions, and I love talking with women, whether or not they want to work with me just about their own period health journey. That's the point of Your Monthly Club, is that line of communication. And you can also find me over on Instagram, which is how we met. And my name on Instagram is @Your Monthly. So I dropped the club for Your Monthly on Instagram.
Beautiful. Amazing. So I've got some quick fire questions. And the first one is, how do you cultivate more pleasure in your life?
Oh my gosh. Quick fire. How do I cultivate more pleasure in my life? Honestly, my kind of mantra at the moment is try and be where my feet are. So I am trying to be more mindful, and I feel like I'm getting a lot more out of my experiences throughout the day because I'm here, not thinking about what I've got next or what I did before.
I love it. Pleasure exists in the present moment. Yes, sister. Yes. The next question is, what have you learned about self-love recently?
Oh, what have I learned about self-love? It's fluid. It changes, and you have to be compassionate towards yourself when you're going through, the ebbs and flows of life. It's not a stagnant thing. You don't find self-love and hold on to it forever. I think it's something you have to keep working at, and have that expectation that it will change.
Absolutely. Beautiful. And my final question is, what is the most impactful book you've ever read? You can only choose one.
I have to say The Period Repair Manual.
Yeah.
By Dr. Lara Briden.
I love her.
That has to be, my number one. I think every female should be given that book.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll put that in the show notes. Epic. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been jam-packed with golden nuggets on how to have happy, healthy cycles. So I'm really grateful for your time, and just thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. You're epic.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
Yay. If you enjoyed this episode, hit like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app, and don't forget to share it with someone who you think could benefit from hearing it too. You can also sign up for Lalulah news and stay up to date with all the juicy content that we only share on email. And I want to take a moment to honor you for following your curiosity and prioritizing your pleasure in this way. And until next time, thank you so much for listening, and I'll be back with another episode soon.